Well, Bernie Finn is Family First lead Senate candidate for Victoria, and he joins me now for Straight Talk. Bernie, welcome.
G'day, Lyle. How are you?
Great. It's good to see you, Bernie. Bernie, this week inflation rose to 4%. Treasurer Jim Chalmers said his budget last month would put downward pressure on inflation, but his big spending and that of his state Labor counterparts has poured petrol on the dumpster fire. What's going on?
Well, I tell you what, I'm reminded of the words of the great Ronald Reagan, where he said, inflation is not about people enjoying life too much; it's about governments enjoying life too much, and that is exactly what is happening. It is in their DNA. It's in the DNA of the socialists to spend money, and they just can't help themselves. And that's exactly what they're doing. And we're seeing it we've been seeing it for a long time now at the state level, and now we're seeing it at the federal level. There is no fiscal restraint at all, and the whole thing is being thrown out, baby, with the bathwater. You know, if Mr. Chalmers really wanted to see a treasurer in action or a government in action, he should have a look at Argentina. Because over in Argentina, the president over there, President Milei, he has, for the first time in 30 years, have zero inflation on food in Argentina, if you don't mind. So it can be done. It can be done. But this government has no capacity and clearly no idea about how to do it. And of course, the next thing that will happen will be the rise in interest rates, and then they're going to be in electoral distress, to say the very least. And what will happen? We'll either have a government panic-stricken running to the polls, or a government that will put it off for as long as it possibly can. And we might see, a July perhaps election next year, which will not go down well in Victoria, I can tell you, because we had a July election once and we nearly all froze. So we hope that won't happen. But it's clearly this government does not have, and any of the state governments, I must say, here in Victoria we have had. The state government tell hospitals that they've got to cut not cut waiting lists, but cut surgery lists. It's just phenomenal what's going on, and it's happening. It's happening around every state in the country.
Yeah, that's right. You've got big spending Labor governments, all up to their eyeballs in debt. And, of course, government debt and spending does cause inflation to go up. Who would have ever thought Argentina would be going the opposite direction? Are we becoming the new Argentina? It's a real worry. It's why we've got to get
we may be. Yeah, no, look, it's just extraordinary.
It is. Now, speaking of the Senate, the Muslim senator from Western Australia, Senator Fatima Payman, crossed the floor this week to support a state in Palestine. Now, Bernie, surely there's been no greater act of appeasement of evil ever committed in an Australian parliament.
I can't think of one. I was absolutely staggered, and what staggered me even more was the reaction of the Prime Minister. Now, here is a bloke who leads a party which has a rule which says if you cross the floor as a Labor MP, you are expelled. Automatically, you are expelled. First thing he did was to come out and say she wouldn't be expelled. Well, I don't know how he can do that because it's against the rules of the party. But then he came out, people were very upset about that statement from him yesterday morning. He came out and said that, perhaps we'll exclude her from the caucus room. He's all over the shop. This bloke does not have the capacity to show any form of leadership at all. And in the meantime, we have a member of the Australian government who is openly supporting a terrorist organisation.
Yeah.
And I find the whole thing appalling, abominable. It is just beyond the realms of decency in any way.
If the Prime Minister, the real scandal is not the crossing the floor. The real scandal is supporting the rapists, the murderers, and the kidnappers of Hamas.
Absolutely. I mean, I find it extraordinary that these people, whether they be Greens, whether they be Labor, whether they be whatever they be, how can you support rapists? How can you support murderers? How can you support kidnappers? How do they, in all honesty, how do they do that?
Yeah.
And we're able to look in the mirror in the morning.
Yeah, no, absolutely. She should be expelled for that, not so much for crossing the floor. Also this week, Bernie, Julian Assange, the WikiLeaks founder, was freed after 14 years in various forms of incarceration in the Ecuadorian embassy in London and then in Belmarsh prison. Assange, hero or villain?
Well, I'm still making up my mind, I've got to say, on that one, because whilst I'm not particularly upset that he's released. Hopefully it'll bring some closure to the whole messy business. But I'm also concerned, of course, that he did endanger Australians. He did endanger US forces. He did endanger a number of people over a period of time, and that is always a concern. But then you've got the argument about freedom of speech. Does freedom of speech extend to threatening the military, threatening our military personnel? I'm still on the fence. I'm glad it's over, but I'm still on the fence as to whether he's a hero or not. I tend to think not.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bernie. I think just dumping stuff indiscriminately on the internet is quite a reckless act. That's not journalism. I think that's just putting stuff out there. But anyway, I think we're all glad the ordeal seems to be over. Peter Dutton has caused a major disruption in politics with his push for nuclear power over the past week. This is a massive shift in the tectonic plates of Australian politics after 30 years of rancor over climate policy. How do you see this playing out? Is this going to finally put to bed the climate wars and the energy debates?
Well, not immediately, because what we're going to see is the Prime Minister has announced that he's going to build a war chest where he's going to run the mother of all fear campaigns against the nuclear proposals put forward by Peter Dutton, which I don't think is particularly helpful, I have to say. I think that most people, most Australians, are prepared to discuss it in a rational manner. They're prepared to look at the pros and the cons and see what works and what doesn't work. Keeping in mind that even yesterday the Council of Social Services came out and said that the poor of Australia are suffering interminably because of the transition to renewables. That's something that the Prime Minister doesn't even want to know about. Here's this bloke who was elected on the fact that he grew up raised by a single mother and living in public housing, but here he is actually hurting the poor and hurting the poor and hurting those who can least afford it. This I think Dutton has bitten the bullet. I think it's a gutsy move on his part, and I hope it pays off. But I still hold to the view that we've got enough coal, we've got enough gas to keep us going for however long that it will take to build a nuclear reactor.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Look, the real thing with this debate is it's got to finally unmask the fact that renewables cannot provide the electricity and the energy and the affordability that's needed for an economy like Australia. So let's hope that's the circuit breaker in this. Bernie, by the time many of our viewers watch this chat between you and I, the Trump-Biden debate will have occurred. It's happening at 11 o'clock Friday morning. Surely Biden is not cognitively capable of a debate, and I'm sure this is going to be exposed. I'm going to go out on a limb. I reckon the Democrats will be looking for a new presidential candidate this weekend.
Well, I wonder if he's being set up. I really do. I mean, to put him out there for 90 minutes... on his own. He's been locked up for 5 days now with 16 advisors. Now, I reckon that would confuse anybody, much less somebody who's already confused. But he's going to be up there for 90 minutes. He won't know which way's up, I don't think. And whilst they've been talking down his prospects of actually making any sense. The fact of the matter is, by the end of it, I think that the majority of people will say the Democrats do need a new candidate, and who that might be, I fear to think. But I think he's probably being set up, and we've got the extraordinary situation where according to the rules that the Democrats have put forward, they're going to be seated at a table. Now, the reason, of course, that they'll be seated at a table is because there's no way Joe could actually stand for that long. And that's a simple fact of the matter. And you know, we've already had President Trump say that he's prepared to take a drug test. Biden is not going to, because we don't know what he's going to be on. Because remember, at the State of the Union, you know, he was on some sort of elephant juice. He was your classic.
He was juiced.
He was absolutely, and he was. I mean, he was your classic angry old man shouting at clouds.
Yeah. I wonder how he's going to go without a teleprompter, Bernie. You know, talk about shouting at clouds. Where's his teleprompter going to be?
Well, I don't know if that'll hurt him too much, because he has a lot of trouble reading the teleprompter.
Well, he reads where it says to pause. Well, it'll be entertaining viewing, Bernie, and I'm sure by the time many people watch this, that debate will have happened, and there'll be a lot of dissection of that. Bernie, thanks so much for being with us again for Straight Talk here on 80H TV.
That's a very great pleasure, Lyle. Great to see you.